What is up, everybody? And it's a little spooky day today because we just saw a spooky movie. Kind of. It's the new Insidious movie, Insidious the Red Door. And I say kind of because it honestly wasn't as much as a horror movie as some of the other Insidious movies, because in a way, this is the ending of a trilogy, even though it is the fifth movie in the franchise, but it's the ending of the Lambert trilogy. It's kind of continuing their story from the first and second movie, and honestly in a pretty unique but interesting way. So what were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was kind of cool to see the current family dynamic and the way things have changed since the other series. Obviously, everyone's grown up in age quite a bit. Dalton's going to college. So, seeing how everything's been affected from the previous films and the relationships that have changed throughout this entire series has just been very interesting to see. Really interesting themes in this one for sure. Very dramatic in comparison, like you were saying. Things like generational trauma, how it can affect family and different relationships in your life. So, definitely an interesting move. Not really what I was expecting, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it dealt with a lot of, like you were saying, family drama and stuff like that, and a lot of trauma built in. Because, like, if you saw the first two movies, especially, you know that certain things happen and like possession happens where the kids get really confused, and there's a whole bunch of stories as they might be scared of their dad. And it's 9 years since the first movie came out, and that's exactly where we pick up, is 9 years after the first movie. And it's really interesting to see how all these characters, like Jake was saying, have kind of grown up, but have also kind of grown apart in a way. And it's very interesting to see that because, yeah, it's not as much of a horror. Like, there's still a lot of scary parts in there. There's a lot of those elements that James Wan kind of made this franchise off of, with it being the scary movements of the camera, the creatures in the background not even making any sounds, just being there and being creepy.
Yeah, like the focus shots where you can see what's in the foreground and something kind of blurred in the background. A lot of very classic moves for this series, but still very enjoyable.
Yeah, like it has all those staples of the Insidious franchise while still being its own unique story. And yeah, it's Patrick Wilson's directorial debut period in the franchise, as well as just directing movies. And I think this is a great movie to start off on. Like I said, he's a star of this movie, as well as like the Conjuring universe. He was the bad man in the first Aquaman movie. Like, Patrick Wilson's in a bunch of stuff. You're probably a fan of him if you watch movies. So it's pretty cool to see him in the director's chair. And Lee Winnell, I'm pretty sure, is still a story writer, even though he did write the first two movies, and I think wrote most of the other ones too, at least had like story treatments and whatnot. So still a lot of the original crew here. The original cast was all back, and some of the people that we haven't seen in a while, like Specs, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but a lot of the characters that we've known from years, and they weren't really a big staple of the movie by any means, but it was really cool to see familiar faces in the little unique and kind of fun ways, in a way.
Right, yeah, this one really tied off a lot of different aspects in the film. It answered just the direction of the film. After the last one, obviously, there were some pretty big changes that I won't get into and spoil for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But, yeah, definitely took some turns and kept things interesting, even though it wasn't a horror film.
Yeah, it's still a horror film, but it's not an outright like scare fest. Like, if you're going to the theater and wanting to be freaked out, and is this like the best horror movie of the year? Honestly, I'd have to revisit that, because right now I'd put it around like a 3.5 to a 4 out of 5. Like, I really thoroughly enjoyed myself, but wasn't really expecting this movie. Like, I was expecting more horror, more scary stuff, which by far, like the MRI scene, and like Jake was actually talking about earlier when we were driving home, there's a scene where Patrick Wilson's doing like this memory game because he's having troubles with his memories and stuff like that, and something really intense happens in that moment. And there's just a lot of classic horror moments, but the MRI machine still will probably be the one that's really going to stick with me the most. It was kind of in the trailer too, and it's just intense, because if you've ever been in one of those machines, the claustrophobic aspect of it is already terrifying enough, and while all of this is happening, it would just be even more terrifying. But the only thing I would say that I didn't love as much, probably why I'm giving it more of a 4 too, is the creature designs. I almost felt like they weren't as like detailed in a way. Like, I want to go back and really look at them again once they're out on DVD and stuff, but from remembering, I watched the first two movies within the past 24 hours, and I don't think the creatures were that good compared to James Wan's, but that's just my opinion. I'd really have to go back and look at it again because there were pretty quick shots in this movie, and some of them were kind of in the dark, but that's my only real downfall, and I kind of wish there was more of that James Wan classic music that was all over the Insidious movie. Like, there's still some moments in there where they include it, but I just love it so much that I would just want to hear more and more of it.
I did really enjoy one supporting cast character in particular, his roommate, Dalton's roommate. I actually really connected with her and got a lot of emotion attached to the said character. And I thought she was really cool. I'd like to see her in more film.
Yeah, I definitely see her as being a hit and miss character for a lot of people in the community watching it because she's definitely more of a comic relief, and I've heard some people not love the comic relief in these movies, which I personally still enjoy, and I thought, like Jake is saying, I thought she was a really fun character to have in there, and kind of being opposite Dalton, being very traumatized and shut down, and her being very
Outgoing,
open and
bubbly,
yeah, and kind
poppy.
of bringing Dalton out of that and kind of making him more well-rounded in a way. So yeah, lots of fun here. Do you want to give it a rating real quick?
I'd say I'd give it a 3 out of 5. I mean, 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's right there. It's not like my favorite of the franchise, but I'm looking forward to going back and revisiting it. And like I said, if you're looking for an outright scare fest, this might not be for you, but honestly, if you're looking for a really good story and really good character moments and just an all-around good movie that's not necessarily outright trying to scare you, but still is very present in that moment, I say check it out and let us know what your thoughts are and honestly what your series ranking is. Like right now, I haven't gone back to watch 4 and 5 recently, but number 1, we saw it in theaters together in high school, so it's one of my favorite horror movies, period. Number 2 is still really solid too and a good continuation of that story, and honestly I'd put this one right at 3 even though it's not the third movie, but the other ones are good. They're more like prequels in a way, I believe.
Yeah.
More about Elise, which she's a great character and she has her moments in this one, but I also loved that they could have probably brought her back for more stuff, but I'm happy they were very seldom with her moments and they used them properly. Like,
yeah, they kept her on reserve for sure, and I think it was used more appropriately for where, like we were saying, the direction of this storyline. So, yeah, I mean, she still had a couple of points where she popped up here and there, but it wasn't like she was overused at all by any means.
No, it's still very much the story of this family, and I really enjoyed that. Would have loved to see more Rose Byrne because I love her a lot, but for what it's worth, this was mostly the characters of the father and son and their relationship more than anything, and how damaged it was from all of the stuff that happened in the first couple movies. But yeah, that's all we have for you today, guys. So go back and check out some of my other reviews. Check out this movie and let us know in the comments what your favorite of the franchise is or what your favorite moment in this one was. And we might see you next time at the movies. Boo.